Okay, so my topic will be green composites, research scope and applications. And as I told you, I'll be speaking mostly on the possibility of doing further research by using green components. Now, let me tell you what composite material is. As we know, composite materials are very common in the material world, and they are basically defined as combinations of two or more materials in which one or more of the materials called the reinforcing phase are in the form of fibers or particles are embedded in the base material called the matrix. So there are basically two things. One is the matrix and other one is the reinforcement. Have a single reinforcement, you can go also for multiple reinforcement, and that combination is like mixture is also a combination, alloy is also a combination, solution is also a combination, but composite is a distinct type of composition combination in which the physical properties or the physical identity of the different constituents, they remain intact. Now in a solution, one gets dissolved into the other. In a alloy, a solid gets dissolved into another solid like steel. But in case of composites, the matrix material, the polymer and the sealers or the reinforcement, they have their physical identity intact, and they together they form a structure, and a very embedded structure, and that structure is called the composite. Now depending on what the matrix material is, you can have metal composite where the matrix is a metal. You can have ceramic matrix composite, and you can also have polymer matrix composites. So in today's presentation, my focus will be on polymer matrix composites, where polymer is the matrix material or the base material or the continuous phase, and in which some fibers or particles are to be embedded. Now, again, if you go for classifying polymer composites, we can have broadly two types. One is particle reinforced, other one is fiber reinforced. Means when the the composite is filled with particles, then we call it particle reinforced. If fibers are embedded into the matrix system, then the composite is called a fiber reinforced composite. Both are polymer composite because the matrix material is polymer. Now, in the particle reinforced composite, again, depending on what is the size of the particle, you can have large size particle composite, you can have micro size particle composite, you also can have nano size particle composites or composites. So nano composites is an area which is very emerging these days, and a lot of research scope is there, where the particulate filler size is of nano order, and they give wonderful properties when get embedded in a matrix system. Similarly, there are fiber reinforced polymer composites, and the fibers can be continuous fibers or they can be discontinuous fibers. The long fibers are continuous fibers, or the discontinuous fibers are basically the short fibers where they can be pushed into the matrix with different orientation and different sizes. So they can be aligned, they can be randomly oriented, and how they are arranged inside the matrix body, the properties are determined. So as I've already told, the polymer composites are broadly fiber reinforced or particulate reinforced. Both fiber reinforced and particulate reinforced have their own merits and demerits. So coming to the fiber reinforced composite, the common fiber reinforced composite are composed of fibers and matrix. As the name implies, there can be fibers. The fibers can be woven fibers or longitudinal fibers. They can be unidirectional fibers or woven in a bidirectional fashion. So there are again different types of combination depending on the arrangement of fibers within the body. Now in these fiber reinforced polymer composites, fibers are the reinforcement and the main source of strength, while the matrix glues all the fibers together in shape and transfer the stresses among the reinforcing fibers. So fibers do the work of bearing the tensile load, and they impart strength to the composite. Therefore, fiber reinforced composites are much stronger compared to the particulate reinforced composite where there is no directionality. Now, so in what way particle reinforced composites are different? Particle reinforced composites are the composites where the polymer are not embedded with long fibers but with micro-sized or nano-sized or large-sized particles. So, microstructures of the composites which show particles of one phase tuned in the polymer matrix are actually the particle reinforced composite. So, when you take a microstructure under any microscope, electron microscope or optical microscope, one can see the distribution of particles over the matrix body. Coming to the topic of today's discussion is green composites. Actually, green composites are the next generation of sustainable composite materials. And research on green composite is picking up nowadays because they are the next generation sustainable composite materials, and they combine natural fibers with natural resins. So in the green composite, either the fiber will be natural, will be from natural resource, or from the matrix or the polymer will be in the from the natural strong composites. Ultimately, the aim is to make a strong composite, but they should not be as heavy as metals. They should be light. They should be lower in densities. And the advantage with the green composite is that they are recyclable and biodegradable. So you can have a recyclability because environmental issues are of great concern these days. And if you are using biodegradable materials, that is always preferred. So green composites are, to understand it as a layman, it must be made of something green, and something green means something not synthetic, not necessarily green in color, but it is not synthetic in nature. So it must have been extracted from natural resources, bioresources like plants and animals or birds. Okay, then we call it a green composite. At least one of the component, the fiber or the resin or both, should be green in nature as far as their material nature is concerned. So green composites are basically composites made up of either biopolymeric matrices or are polymers reinforced with bio. So what are biofibers? So there is a term with which we are very familiar, that is natural fiber. Natural fiber means the fibers which are obtained from nature. Okay. Now, what are the fibers that are what are the sources from which we can get the fibers? You can get fibers from green resources like plant, animals, etc., or you can get fibers from mineral resource as well. So asbestos is an example of mineral fiber, which is a natural fiber. But we don't call it a green fiber. We call plant fibers and animal fibers are green fibers. So they can be divided into various types depending on from which source they are extracted. So we can have plant fibers, animal fibers, and mineral fibers. And in animal category, you can also we can also obtain human. You can also get fibers from birds. You can also get fibers from aqueous species. So taking them all together, I have written animal fibers here. Now let us classify again the natural fibers. They are either from the plant or from animal, as I told you. So in the plant again, from different parts of the plant we can extract fibers. There can be fibers extracted from seed of a fruit like that of cotton. There can be fibers extracted from leaves like sisal, pineapple, palm. Okay, there can be fibers from the bast, that is rami, hemp, flax, etc. There can be fibers from the fruit itself like coconut coir. Coconut is a fruit, coconut coir. So From the stack of the plant also we can get fibers like rice husk. Rice husk is from the fruit. Okay. Similarly, from the animal resource, we can get animal hair. Animal hair, we can get the hair of a sheep, hair of a horse, even human hair. I'll show you some microstructure of human hair on which we are working right now. And you can also derive from feather, and also there is a silk fiber is an example of animal fiber. Similarly, the other mineral fibers are crocidolite, tremolite, actinolite, asbestos, etc. Okay. So today in this class we will be discussing few cases of plant fiber and animal fiber. Now you can see this is a gallery of green fibers. So Mother Nature has given us a vast range of plants and species from which the scientific community can think of extracting fibers, and those fibers can be used as reinforcement in composite materials, and preferably in polymer composites, because these natural fibers are very much compatible with the polymeric matrices like epoxy, polyester, polypropylene, nylon, vinyl ester, phenolic resin, polyether, ether ketone. So there is wide range of possibilities where these natural fibers or green fibers can be thought of being used. So here I show you some pictures like banana fibers, kantala fiber, palm, coir, sisal, and coconut and jute fibers. So already a lot of work have already been done on these fibers, but still they remain largely unexplored. So there are a lot of area, lot of dimension in which one can work with these fibers. And of course, you have the option of choosing a matrix of your own choice. It can be a thermoset polymer. It can be a thermoplastic polymer like polypropylene. It can be thermoset like polyester or epoxy. So there is wide variety of choice. What I'm trying to impress upon you, particularly on the young researcher, is that there is a lot of scope where you can build new type of composites where everything is green and you harm little to the environment. This is a picture of a plant fiber in the process of being extracted from its origin. Now, some common natural fiber, common plant fibers, I would say, or I would say green fibers. The common constituents are, they consist of actually cellulose, hemicellulose, then lignin, pectin, moisture, and waxes. So you can see the percentage do vary, but in almost all plant fiber, these are the constituents present. Their content varies from fiber type to fiber type. So here we have a tabular illustration in which you can see the cotton, bamboo fiber, flax fiber, hemp, jute, kinaf, sisal, coir, etc. So their composition is being shown. If you look at the properties, some tensile strength properties, then you can in the first column you can see some green composites with polypropylene hemp, polypropylene jute, polypropylene kinaf, polypropylene rice husk. All these are green fibers embedded into a thermoplastic polymer, that is polypropylene. And you can see with the fiber content, the tensile strength, you can get different tensile strength and Young's modulus. If you look at the tensile strength value, they are strong enough. Although I would say they are not as strong as glass fiber composites. Glass fiber, carbon fiber, they are all synthetic fibers, and their tensile strength is very high. So the composites that you make of these synthetic fibers will also be great. So the will also be great in tensile strength. So compared to that, the green composites will not have comparable tensile strength, but still the tensile strength that you obtain with the green fibers are also not so low, and they have other additional advantages also that I will discuss. So what are the advantages of using a green fiber and making a green composite? A green composite is always biodegradable. They are low cost. They are low cost because they are available from natural resources. They are inexhaustible. You can cultivate and get. I mean, it is not that they will one day they will vanish from the planet. So they are renewable. You can say they are inexhaustible. They are renewable. They are biodegradable, and they are of low cost. Therefore, and they have good thermal insulative properties. So if you want to make panels both from heat, electricity, and also from for sound or acoustic, so you can have green composites for the purpose. They have good mechanical properties. They have reasonably good tensile strength and bending strength. They have good impact strength. They are less abrasive or mostly non-abrasive in nature. Unlike synthetic, if you say glass fiber and carbon fiber, they are very highly abrasive in nature. Then these green composites are having good acoustic damping, and they have low coefficient of thermal expansion. What happens when they have low coefficient of thermal expansion? The dimensional stability of the composite with temperature change is maintained over a large range of temperature, and that does only with the polymer. If you take only polymer, then the coefficient of thermal expansion is very large. So in that case, on heating, they start getting deformed. But in the presence of a natural fiber, the coefficient of thermal expansion becomes low, so the dimensional stability is improved. Now there are some disadvantages as well, like inadequate waiting area and debonding, etc. But the advantages supersedes always the disadvantages. Some of the general applications. There are innumerable applications, but I would cite some general applications of FRP composites or fiber reinforced polymer composite made up of green fibers. They are used in various automotive parts. If you look at the dash of a Maruti car, so that is nothing but a green composite. It's made up of sisal fiber. Sisal is a plant very widely found in the eastern part of India. Then you can get green composite applications in summer and winter sports equipment. You can have them in containers, particularly insulative containers, boxes, trays, and packaging. You can use them as decking material, then modular house construction equipments, and so on. So these are the some of the general applications of green composites. But if you list out the specific applications, the list is going to be very long. I told you in the beginning that the composite can be fiber reinforced or can be particulate reinforced. Now in the particulate reinforced, you have large scale particles, microparticles, or nanoparticles as the reinforcement. And as usual, you will have your matrix. Within the matrix body, the particles will be embedded. And there are certain benefits of such particulate field composites compared to the fiber reinforced composites. As I told you, both have their own advantages and disadvantages. Now let me discuss the benefits of particulate field composites using green or non-green particles. I mean, this is the benefit of particulate composites in general. Now, when you put particles in the matrix, it builds up a composite, and you obtain improvement in mechanical properties like hardness, impact strength, and compressive strength. Tensile strength is missing here because it has been found that for most of the particulates, the tensile strength doesn't improve. Rather, there is a marginal drop in tensile strength once you reinforce the polymer with these particulates. But you get improvement in thermal properties like insulation properties, provided the particulates are insulative in nature, or conductive properties if the particulates are conductive in nature. You find improvement in glass transition temperature in most of the cases, and a drop in coefficient of thermal expansion. Now, with the reinforcement of particulates and improvement of hardness, you also get there some improvement in the tribological properties. That means they are now better material for tribo applications and tier applications. You get enhancement in the optical and electrical properties. Of course, you have to choose the right filler for that. Then if you are choosing low cost fillers, and green fillers are low cost fillers, then there is a reasonable reduction in cost. So you get a cheaper composite having superior properties. Second thing is that the last but one thing is that there is a ease of processing. Means while making the composite, you don't require any instrument, nothing. And if you are using thermoset polymers, then you can simply mix the hardener with the polymer and mix the predetermined particulates in the right proportion and steer it. And then after some time, it will undergo a natural curing, and the composite can be made. And in the fiber reinforced composite, you require so many things. You require the mold release sheets, you require the roller, you require a mixer, and if it is a thermoplastic material, you require a compression molding or injection molding machine. In case of particulate reinforcement, you don't require anything. On your study table itself, you can make composite samples. Another advantage of particulate composite is that it's more isotropic in nature as compared to fiber composite. Means the properties are more or less same in different directions. So there is less anisotropy. In fiber reinforced composite, the isotropy is not maintained. Now, when we talk of green composites, we need to go back to the ancient days. And green composites are not new things. Maybe in the research field, they are coming up as new area, but green composites have been part of our life since many old civilizations. Now, these Israeli people, they were using bricks made of clay and reinforced with straw, and that is an early example of application of green composites. And in our villages also, you will see the container where the crops are contained, grains are contained, stored. They are also made of the straw and mud. That is also an example, a very good example of green composite. And if you go to tribal areas, and in and around Gunpur also, you can see that in tribal villages, people have made huts, the houses made up of bamboo and mud. That is also an example of green composite. So green composites are not new thing. Maybe they are new as far as the systematic research endeavors are concerned, but in our civilization, they have been there. Even from 1500 before Christ, Egyptians are also using these green composites. Now, you can see there are some natural biocomposites. Then you don't have to make it. Look at the banana. Banana is a natural biocomposite made by God himself. Then the wood. Wood is a natural composite. The shell of a crab. I will show you the picture. The outer cell of a tortoise, the cell of a wood apple or bale, what is called in Hindi bale. So wood apple. So they are all natural composites. Trunk of a tree, they are all natural. A log, a wooden log you take, and you can see the structure inside. That is a very beautiful natural green composite already prepared by God. Okay, so there are unique properties, as I told you, of green composites. They have excellent acoustic properties. That is the reason they can be used for theaters and soundproof enclosures. They have got good structural properties. So in structural applications, they can be put because of the low density of the fibers. They have less weight, so they are light as well as strong. So the strength to weight ratio is very high, much higher than that of metals. So these are some of the good things about the biofibers or green fibers. Another good thing about them is that they are readily available. Means these resources are in and around us. You don't have to procure them from Europe or America or Australia. You want a green fiber, the green fiber you can arrange from the cultivation site of in and around your house or your institute. If you go out to the forest, you can get large options of sources from which green fibers can be extracted. So they're readily available and their specific properties are comparable to those of fibers, other fibers used for reinforcement. So that is the reason why these green fiber composites has been a subject of interest for past few years, because we are the mankind and the entire scientific community are looking for cheap and eco materials, and these green composites fit very well into these requirements. And as I told you, they are low cost, they are low density fibers with high specific strength and modulus. They are low priced, recyclable, biodegradable, non-abrasive in nature. They are easily available, and above all, they attract our attention because they are eco-friendly. So they are environment friendly. So they are always most of them are non-toxic and they are not harmful for the human body, and because of their natural what do you say, fragrance, naturalness you can say. So there are many good things about the green composites as a whole. Now there is a peculiarity in the green fibers that they are non-uniform, unlike the synthetic fibers. Synthetic fibers are prepared in industries, so they are prepared with the help of machine, so they are of uniform cross section. But the green fibers available from plant resources, they have non-uniform cross section and irregular cross section, and that makes their larger the interfacial area with the polymer little larger. When the interfacial area with the polymer is large, then what happens? The adhesion between the fiber and the matrix becomes also large, and that imparts strength to the combination that is called a green composite. So although for last I'm telling you about natural fibers, the good things about the natural fiber, but still what happens in the last part of 20th century, somehow the popularity of synthetic fibers grew very rapidly, and people were, or the scientists were not interested about the green fibers. I'm talking of the last part of 20th century. Now today we are in the 21st century. So what happened? The new synthetic fibers were invented that time, and people got attracted to the synthetic fibers, and they gave up this use of natural fibers or green fibers. But later in this century, but later on, in the beginning part of this century, the environmental issues came up, and gradually the biofibers are again going to take center stage in the field of composites, and they've already taken the center stage. Okay, so but in the last part of 20th century, this happened. That time, a cartoon was published in a newspaper where you can see even the animal, the sheep, who is a source of natural fiber, is is seen with his son, and the son is telling that, "Papa, you see, I am wearing a synthetic clothing." Means the source of green fiber himself is wearing a synthetic fiber made cloth. So this cartoon indicated that that was a time where the popularity of green fibers went down, and the popularity of synthetic fibers were up in the market and also in the field of research. But things have changed now, time has changed, and people are now interested in green fibers and green technology and green composites. Now again, these biofibers are can be classified into different types, although there is no specific broad classification, but they can be classified on different types by or based on the source from which they are picked up. So biofibers obtained from plant, from animal, from bird, and from aqueous species. Okay. From the plant species, basically cellulose is the main constituent. From the animal, protein. From the bird, keratin. From the aqueous species, also keratin. Of course, keratin is also a protein. From the plant source, we can get the fibers from the bast. Bast means the main body of the plant, like henna, abaca, banana, bamboo, etc. Jute. We can extract fibers from the leaves, from the patta, like sisal, pick, palm trees, pineapple, etc. We can get it from the seed, like cotton and kapok, from the fruit, like coconut coir and African palm. We can also get fibers from the wood, from the soft and hard wood. We can find animal fibers from wool, hair, silk, feathers from birds, and waste from aqueous species. This I have already discussed, that their tensile strength are, though not very strong, not very high compared to the synthetic fiber, but still they are no less also. For many purposes where the high tensile strength is not needed, these composites can be used. Then benefits of biocomposite. Compared to the synthetic composites or non-biocomposites, they have reduced noise and vibration. They can very well replace the fiberglass, wood and plastic products. And they have the potential to reduce manufacturing steps. This is very important. With less manufacturing steps, the needed for the finishing products, you can have the product. That is the beauty of biodegradable green composites. I just wanted to show you a little before, some time ago, I wanted to show you this slide actually here, that in the nature, you can find some green composites as it is. You don't have to make them, they are made by the nature itself. So you can see the shell of a crab, and this is a natural composite. It has lot of calcium carbonate, and some hard particles inbuilt into it, and therefore after the crabs die or killed, the crab cells can be made use of in making green composites, because otherwise that is a biological waste only. You can see these are some marine species, and the cover is hard, their cell is hard, and the cell is contains lot of calcium carbonate and other constituents, and the when you crush them after they die, and they are when they are no more living, so you can crush them and can be used as a filler in composite material. The huge tortoise, you know, it is covered with a very hard shell. Now the shell of the tortoise is also a natural composite. It's a green composite. It can be, therefore it can be crushed and can be used as a filler material in composites. Now I'll discuss some typical cases that my students have worked on the biofiber area, and they have made green composites. While keeping the reinforcement green, they have used polymers from the thermoset or thermoplastic pool, and they have prepared green composites and carried out some tests on them. You'll be surprised to see the sources. Normally, lot of work has been done on jute fiber, coconut coir, sisal fiber, hemp, etc., even palm and pineapple fibers. But there are many areas which are not yet touched upon. So in those areas, you have some animal sources, some bird sources. So we picked up from different unconventional sources, extracted fibers and made composites, and we got encouraging results. So we have made a new class of green composites using poultry feather or chicken feather, fish scale, and plant fibers, marine species, and different agro products. Now case 1, this particular case. Now look at this bird, and this bird is eaten by a large section of the population. But when you go to get chicken meat, the feathers are useless part of the body. So feathers are just thrown away and dumped to environment, and they create lot of environmental pollution. They are practically of no use, neither to the eater nor to the seller. Okay. So, but there is lot of beauty and lot of potential hidden in this chicken feathers, which was made use of by my a group of students in this lab. Now what we did, if you look at a chicken feather, a single chicken feather, you can see microstructurally they are so nicely woven. Cannot resist praising God when you look the way they are woven and strewn to each other. Now this is a simple feather, looks like this, but when you take a intricate view of this, you can see how nicely they are strewn. So this helps them in making a good composite, and they can be used advantageously in any polymer. We have tried with polyester and epoxy. We got very good composites. I will show you the picture of the composite. And those composites, we put them to wear applications and found that they are exhibiting excellent wear resistance properties. And at the same time, the cost of the product comes down heavily, because the reinforcement what you are using, you are not buying it from market. It is easily available in the society free of cost. Okay. So this is the typical structure of a chicken feather. These are different parts. If you take a microstructure of the what do you say, this one, quill. This is the quill. Quill means the solid part from which the feathers are branched out. If you take this, you will find that that is porous in nature. So there are a lot of continuous and discontinuous pores, and when this quill is reinforced into polymeric matrix, it can act as a very good acoustic insulator. It can act as a very good thermal insulator, and of course an electric insulator. Because what you have here is air. Air is a very bad conductor of heat, electricity, and sound, and heat electricity. So this can be used as a insulator. There are good things about the biofibers that has been used, like high toughness, good thermal and insulation properties, non-abrasive behavior. Well, they are hydrophobic in nature, low cost, low density. Hydrophobic in nature means they do not absorb moisture so easily as the synthetic fiber, because their bird species, when they are drenched in the rain, they simply seck their body and the water goes out. So the feathers are mostly hydrophobic in nature, means they don't attract water. So therefore the dimensional stability is maintained because absorption of moisture is very low. And they have large aspect ratio, low cost. Of course, why low cost? Almost no cost, and low density. Now, how to just giving a very brief description of how a composite is prepared. This is for the participants who are not familiar with the composite preparation. So these chicken feathers are collected from poultry units, and they are cleaned with a polar solvent like ethanol and are dried. The quills are removed. The quills can separately be used as making different types of composite, but in this case the quills are removed, and the short fibers of length 10 to 15 mm average are obtained, and these fibers in predetermined weight proportion, 10%, 20%, 30%, like, they are reinforced with random orientation into the epoxy resin. So epoxy is the polymer that is used as the matrix material here. That these fibers or short fibers of feather are reinforced and are placed randomly. Then a block of desired size can be cast. The casting is put under the load for about 24 hours. After 24 hours, when you remove the load, then you can get the sheet, and the sheet can be cut into the different sizes for the specimens of required dimension for different tests. For tensile test, you require a rectangular specimen. For erosion test, you require a square size specimen. For sliding weight test, you require cylindrical specimen. So you can cut like that. Now these chicken feathers, what they are consists of? They consist of about 91% protein, 1% lipid, and 8% water. The acid sequence of chicken feather is very similar to that of other feathers, and also has a great deal in common with the reptilian keratin from claws. The sequence is largely composed of cysteine, glycine. These are the other chemical constituents that a feather has. As a mechanical engineer, we are not bothered much about the chemistry. We are bothered much about more about the physical, mechanical, and microstructural properties. Now look at this. This is the look of the composite. The composite is very strong. The strength increased many folds when feathers are reinforced. And this is the epoxy is the matrix, and you can see the random orientation. Even in the naked eye, we can see this, and in microstructure, it appears very clearly. So poultry feather composite is a case where we got some interesting news, interesting results, like the tensile strength is measured to be 70 megapascal, which is good, and the reinforcement has caused a reduction of about 30% in the composite density. That means the composite has become lighter than what epoxy is. Therefore, the strength to weight ratio has increased, and this happens because of the low density of the reinforcement. Otherwise, if you insert glass fiber or carbon fiber, the densities are little higher, so you don't get a lighter composite as such. Now, this is the microstructure of a eroded composite after the composite was put into wear test, and then there are different types of wear. I'm not going detail into that. Adhesion wear, abrasion wear, sliding, erosion wear. So we subjected these to erosion wear, and we found that they are giving a higher erosion resistance compared to neat epoxy. Now look at this. If the neat epoxy erosion rate is this, then with the reinforcement of feather, the erosion rates are coming down. With further increase of feather, the rates will be further down. So this is very increasing, very interesting, and it can be used in applications where you require wear resistance. So let me summarize this case one where we have made a composite with epoxy and poultry feather. It is a strange material, but gives a very good product. So we concluded that successful fabrication of poultry feather epoxy composite is possible by simple hand layup technique. You don't require any intricate technology for that. Such composites have adequate potential for applications in highly erosive environments. Although they exhibit tensile and flexible strength, their erosion wear performance shows significant improvement with the reinforcement of such feather fibers. So we make some compromise in the tensile strength, means they have not increased drastically like glass fiber or carbon fiber composite, but if you can make a compromise on that, if you can ignore that, then we find good improvement in the erosion wear performance. Let me come to a second case. So first one is a bird species, the second one is a aqueous species. Aqueous means the living beings which live in water. So the most common aqueous species is, and many of us are fish eaters. So when we go to a fish market, you buy the fish and you ask him to remove the scales. Scales means the outer cover of the fish body. Okay, so these are the scales. If you go to any fish market, you will find the fish scale are scattered here and there. That is a biological waste. They simply are dumped into the drains or simply dumped into the open atmosphere. And they are not only biological waste, they create environmental pollution also. Although they are degradable, but they take long time to degrade. So they are useless as far as the market value is concerned. The markets are concerned. But what we did, because we were interested in making something green, so we thought, why not to use this waste resource? Why not to use this waste as a resource for making a value-added product? We took a typical fish, Labio rohita, and this is rohi fish in common term, and we got some scales, the fish scale. Now, fish, as we know, is the most abundantly available aqueous species. If you are working on fish scale, one thing you can be sure that there will be no dearth of getting the reinforcement material. You can get abundant fish scales from the market without paying anything. So fish is one of the most abundantly available aqueous species, and its scale, regarded is otherwise as a waste material, can be gainfully converted to a value-added green product. And it has been reported that tensile strength of the scale is as high as 90 megapascal. 90 megapascal is a pretty good value as far as tensile strength of short fibers are concerned, and it is also called mineralized collagen fiber because of the constituents it is made up of. Look at the fish scale. The fish scale is typically cycloid type, having a smooth outer edge, and appears to be consisting of concentric layers. So you can see there are concentric circles, okay, and the surface of the scale is divisible to anterior, lateral, and posterior regions. Its center is regarded as focus. Is the focus. I'm giving the enlarged view of a single fish scale. And what is in Hindi it is called chilka of a fish, okay. So its center is regarded as the focus around which the circuli are laid in regular manner. So you can see that the circuli are interrupted at intervals by the transverse radii. Now a further look, you will see that a magnified look will give a magnified view will give you that the peculiar arrangement of bony ridges. There are ridges on the scale body. On the body of the scale, you will find projected ridges like this, and these ridges are very helpful while imparting the adhesion strength to the composite, and also for the proper bonding of the composite. This is a typical SEM image of a epoxy fish scale composite, clearly showing the features at the matrix fiber interface. Now, these are SEM images again. Again, these composites were prepared by my group, and we epoxy fish scale composite, we put them to wear tests, and after wear, the worn surfaces are put under microscope to assess and to identify the damage mechanism, and we got these are the pictures. These are part of the research, so I'm not going detail into that. I'm only trying to give you an idea about how you can use biological waste for making green composites, which is biodegradable in nature. Now look at the picture of the scale, that the picture of the composite that we have made. So you can see this rectangular piece. This is this one. This is a fish scale reinforced polymer composite, more precisely an epoxy composite. And you can see that they are randomly placed inside the epoxy body, and the short fibers are visible. Actually, the single fish scales are cut into small fibers of 5 mm, 6 mm, and those fibers are reinforced. The scales themselves, as it is, they are not embedded in the matrix. Now, this is a basic formula by which you can find out the theoretical density and actual density. In a composite research, when you need to find out the density, theoretical. Why I am telling two different terms? Because they are not same, and because of the presence of voids and pores in the composite during the composite making, the actual density is never equal to the measured density. So there is always a gap, and that gap gives you an idea about how much pores, what fraction of pores and voids are present in the composite, or the porosity of the composite. Now, when you are doing a composite research, anything mixed into anything will not give you a composite. You have to judiciously choose what should be the matrix material and what should be the reinforcement material. And if you do not want to waste your experimental time and trial time and material, which are costly, you can predetermine or pre-study the possibility of composite formation by certain chemical tests like FTIR spectroscopy. FTIR spectroscopy is a technique by which you can identify the functional groups present in the polymer you are using and present in the prospective fiber you are going to use. And you can see, and that gives the functional groups. You may take the help of a chemistry expert, will do the FTIR analysis and tell you what are the functional groups available in those uh, constituents. That means this is the epoxy chain. Similarly, this is a raw fish scale spectroscopy. You can also get spectroscopy for epoxy resin, and from these peaks, you can identify the functional groups. From the functional groups, I'm telling you that, and this is the composite FTIR spectroscopy. Now, what all these things we need not go in detail. We can analyze them with the help of a person from chemistry, and we can get some idea about how the bond formation is actually taking place. Now you can see this is the epoxy chain as obtained from the spectroscopy, and this is a polypeptide chain, and you can see that the oxygen of the epoxy chain and hydrogen of the polypeptide chain, they are forming a bond here. That is the reason of making, they are forming a bond. So this bond formation helps in improving the strength of the composite. These composites were also put into wear test. See, every time I am repeating that they are put into wear test because I am working on wear of composites. So every composite I make, I normally try to make a tribological characterization of that. So in that regard, I got this result that with use of this scale, the wear rate is drastically reducing. It's a good finding, and such composites, therefore you can see this is with neat epoxy, whereas this is with the fish scale reinforcement. So with the reinforcement, we are getting less wear, and therefore the wear resistance is improved, and therefore they can be used in the tribological applications like conveyor belt rollers, like wherever there is a sliding wear or where there is erosion like fan blades, you can use them. If I want to summarize the second case of fish scale composite, then I would say this way, that the successful fabrication of epoxymetric composites reinforced with flex of fish scale is possible by again simple hand layup technique. You don't require any intricate technology, any machine for this, and you can make it in your lab without the help of any intricate equipment, sophisticated equipment. These composites possess very low amount of porosity, which is good, and improved micro hardness, and they exhibit, although they exhibit slightly inferior tensile and flexural strength, but they are very good in showing better erosion performance and wear performance. The spectroscopic analysis concludes that, as I showed you earlier, the formation of hydrogen bonds occurring at the fiber matrix interface between the oxygen atom of the epoxy and hydrogen atom of the polypeptide chain of the fish scale is responsible for the formation of this new class of composites. So one FTIR analysis before the composite building helps you in determining that how the composite, what is the possibility of composite formation. And this is not a child's game that you mix anything with anything and you get a composite. So you have to be very judicious in deciding what will be the constituents. After the animal resources, we will come to a plant resource. So I'll give you a very recent research of my group, and we are still it is still going on, and we have not got the final results. But this is also a very interesting material. Now, the material is the fruit of a plant, that is walnut. So walnut is the nut is covered with a cell, and where the nut is consumed by human beings, the cell is thrown. Now, just like this groundnut, mungfali. So what do? You take the nut and throw the groundnut cell. So the walnut cell is also similar kind, and we crossed the walnut cell and made it into a powder form, and then used it as a particulate reinforced composite. Till now, the two cases I discussed were fiber reinforced composite, but this one is a particulate reinforced composite. And we got some results in terms of tensile strength and flexural strength. And we found that although there is a drop in tensile strength, there is some uh, promising increase in compressive strength. And thermal properties particularly are very encouraging to exhibit results like improvement in the glass transition temperature and lowering of the coefficient of thermal expansion and lowering of the effective thermal conductivity. So this is, apart from Weir characterization, we are also doing some thermal characterization here, and we found these results, and on the basis of these results we can recommend this case, that walnut shell powder, for application in thermal field, like for example making insulation boards because the conductivity is less, and heat sinks, etc. Now look at this. Can you tell what it is? This is the microscopic image, electron microscope image of a single human hair. So right now my group is working on making composites with human hair. Human hair is another biological waste, and this contains lot of keratin, and it is a potential material for, there are certain things made up of hair, like the artificial hair, wigs, etc. But they can be, there is possibility of making a better value added product out of this. So you can see the ridges here again. So they help in making the composite. So I'll show you some pictures now, wherefrom you will get some idea about what can be done. Now banana fiber. Now banana fiber, it is from the bast itself we get this, extract these fibers. It is very strong, and with lot of banana plantation in our country, particularly in southern part of India, there is a lot of possibility and potential for research work as well as commercial venture with banana fiber. The banana fiber, these are some of the microscopic image. You can see that they are not having a uniform or smooth surface. The surfaces are rough, and actually this rough surface is what the advantage of this rough surface we tap out in a composite making. Because of the rough surface, the adhesion is better. Now this is a commonly seen plant in the Indian subcontinent, particularly in the eastern part of India. This is sisal, and sisal agave, the biological name. From the sisal you can extract sisal fibers like this, and lot of fibers, and the fiber is very strong. Already sisal fiber has found application in automotive dashboards and window panels and door panels, but still lot of application can be, lot of research can be done on the thermal behavior of sisal fiber. It's a very good research area, and sisal plants are available in plenty, so there will not be any shortage of fibers for anyone's research. It can be also available free of cost. Government of India has a sisal research foundation also, who encourage the research in sisal fiber. So this is one of the, I'm just showing you the windows through which you can look into the world of green composites and think of a new research topic. These are the microscopic images. Now you can see these are the surface morphology of a palmyra leaf fiber. Palmyra leaf is a palm tree, and the palm tree leaf, it has got a stake. This is called the stake. The stake is a bunch of fibers you can find within that. So fibers are extracted from the leaves as well as from the stakes, and you can see that on microscope their surface morphology looks like this, and these protrusion on the surface, they help in making the composite, and effective one. Now, before I conclude this topic on green composites, I'll have to make few clarification that why we are making composites we using strange things. So chicken feeder, fish scale, then walnut shell dust, then nut shell, leaf fiber. So these are not conventional fibers. We are also trying now some marine species and agro products. And you must be wondering why not to do research on synthetic composites? Why not? Why green composites? And that too using these strange fibers. The reason is very simple, because these are mostly unexplored. So it is always advantageous as a researcher to walk into unexplored area, unbeaten path. So in nature, in and around you, you will always just open your eyes, you will find a large galaxy of possible resources from which you can derive fibers. And if the resource is natural, then of course there is a green fiber, and with green fiber you can make green composites. And green composites, there is a, I would like to conclude with this statement that there is a lot of scope for research in this green composite area with promising results. Thank you.